All right, I want to show you something that is startling in and of itself. I'm not talking about the 450-point sprint in the Dow today, but Bitcoin. It is now closing in on $100,000 a coin, right now hovering around the $98,000 level. It has run up better than 40% since the election of Donald Trump a couple of weeks ago. It's up about 133% this year. There are a number of catalysts for this. Optimism that whatever the president-elect is going to do, it's going to ignite the economy and really sort of rebrew animal spirits that go beyond stocks to so-called rogue currencies that are hardly rogue anymore, that are gotten to be very popular because a lot of countries are building up reserves of them. Today, they started a lot of ETFs, electronic trade funds, that are beginning to trade options. They're their own ETF options, another way to expand the pool of people who can invest in this. So all the beneficiaries are from Bitcoin to all the ancillary players. Scott Martin, the Kingsview Asset Management CIO, with us right now. The stock run-up is startling enough if you think about it, Scott, but what's been going on with Bitcoin, we're past the can it survive or not survive stage. I don't know whether a $100,000 coin does the trick. But I do know we are past the point of killing this thing, as some have argued, some in Washington have been trying.
Yes, looks pretty good for the coin itself, doesn't it, Neil? Now, the funny part about Bitcoin is, why are you, Mr. or Mrs. Investor, owning it? Are you owning it as an alternative to stocks, an alternative to bonds? My goodness, as you mentioned in your lead-in, maybe an alternative to our good old US of A dollar, which is scary to think about, that maybe there's a replacement coming down the road there, which I hope doesn't happen, because as we rack up all this debt, we need the reserve currency, ladies and gentlemen. So let's leave that off the table for now. But Bitcoin, Neil, to our work and our records, has a value in a portfolio nowadays because it's doing something different than stocks, doing something different than bonds, doing something different than gold, even different than this jacket here as I wear it, and look at Bitcoin as a possible viable investment going forward.
Now, you know, some people look at this, Scott, I talk to them, who say, be careful what you wish for. This thing is a dollar killer. This thing is a traditional currency killer. This thing is, you know, loved by the mob and nefarious forces because you could secretly buy and sell things without people tracing you. It's not quite that simple anymore. But that is a concern, that if this puppy is doing great, that means other investments might not do great for very long, that it's a harbinger of dangerous things to come. What do you think?
Woof, woof. I agree with you. And I'll tell you what, as we look at Bitcoin and some of these other alternatives that are out there, Neil, they are a little bit new age. They're a little bit different than what we're used to traditionally. And it's something that you must keep an eye on going forward because of that risk to our domestic currency. But it's no longer a biddy situation, let's say, when it comes to Bitcoin and some of these other coins, because some of them won't make it. Bitcoin, obviously, kind of the leader here, the most heralded, the most fanfared. So the reality is, if you're against that kind of replacement of the dollar, just buy some of the Bitcoin ETF as we have and ride it along.
All right, real quick on this. A lot of countries are building up reserves of Bitcoin and some of these other players, Ethereum and what have you. And then you have this move afoot right now for more mutual fund companies and big investment banks to include it in their diverse portfolios. That can only increase the base of buyers, I would imagine, right?
It's an unbelievable self-fulfilling prophecy, my friend. When we have a limited supply, a limited value, let's say, of the Bitcoins that are out there, as you get more buyers, as we've seen with inflation, the prices go higher. It almost feeds itself, and therefore more people come in and chase the thing and push it up higher. So it's a pretty wild ride so far, something that I think we've seen, as you mentioned, since the election, going from 75K all the way up to nearly 100. That could continue to push itself along as we see more buyers come in here.
All right, thank you very much, my friend. Back in September to illustrate.